right, thank you for tuning in to our podcast. Today's guest is Rob Hill. He's our Emergency Management Director, along with my co-host, Melissa Reams, our Deputy City Manager, and Michelle Charles is our producer. And who you don't see is Eric Moreau, and he's our videographer. He's behind the camera. Thank you for joining us today. We want to talk to you about all things emergency management, but right now, especially storm preparedness. So what are some tips that you would advise our community to be prepared?
So the first thing that we like to recommend is that everybody has multiple ways to receive notifications about impending severe weather, whether it's an app, whether you watch the news to see what the weather forecast is, whether you read your information, or simply just have a NOAA weather radio in your house or your business that lets you know of a threat. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is to have a plan in place for work, for home, and when you're outdoors. So if you are out participating in outdoor activities, what you're going to do and where you're going to go if you have severe weather come into the area.
Well, and we just got new alarms set, the sirens throughout the community.
We did. Outdoor warning sirens, yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about those and the benefit of the new system?
Yeah, absolutely. So the old system was about 30 years old, and we wanted to update the sirens. And one of the things that we looked at, because we're always trying to be conscientious about how much money we spend and where we're putting our efforts. And one of the things that we did was we put all of the talking storm sirens in the highly outdoor populated areas, right? So they make announcements. So they don't just activate. They tell you that they're going to sound. And in the residential areas, business districts, and areas like that, we have rotating mechanical sirens that are much louder. We were able to go from 56 sites to 36 sites with the new system, and it's a lot more manageable for us and still have the same coverage. Actually, we gained more coverage because now we have Lake McMurtry covered as well.
That's what I thought. So we actually have more of the highly populated areas with recreation and that kind of thing included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the storm sirens go off, here's kind of a little misnomer. Different people have different ideas about what it means. Some people think that it's going off to tell us, hey, there's a potential, right? But when we activate storm sirens, it's a warning. We want people to take cover. You have very limited amount of time, usually somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes to get to cover should the sirens activate. Now let's think about this for a minute. So you're at Boomer Lake, you're walking the lake, and you know it's lightning, and you know that it's thundering in the distance, and the siren starts up, and how it will activate it will give you like a courtesy tone. It just kind of ding, 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 and it says stand by for tornado warning, and then it will announce and activate and let you know that there is a threat. You've got somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes to get to cover. That's why we're saying you need a plan. You need to have a plan in place.
And Eric, can you put an example of that at the end of this video for our viewers to hear? I think that will be helpful because we do have that recorded that you.
We have one of them recorded.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have that at the end.
So, Rob, do we have any public storm shelters anymore? If I'm at Boomer Lake, where am I going? Getting in my car and trying to get back home?
Yes. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So
the ditch.
The ditch.
Well, they don't even recommend that anymore, believe it or not. It's so dangerous. But and while she brought that up, that is something very good, right? We don't want to go to a ditch, and we definitely do not want to go to an underpass or an overpass, right?
Because I've heard that's not safe.
And we can talk about why we don't do those. But there are no public storm shelters in the city of Stillwater.
Even at OSU, there's none?
So the city of Stillwater, or OSU does have storm shelters, but they're for students, faculty, and staff.
Okay.
So the locations that they have are designed to hold the people that are supposed to be going there, not the community.
Right.
Now, let's touch very briefly about why we don't have public storm shelters. If we built public storm shelters, we would have to build public storm shelters for everybody.
That's right.
Absolutely everybody, right? We couldn't say, these people want to go to a storm shelter and these people don't. We still have to build it for everybody.
For more than 50,000 people.
Yeah, for more than 50,000 people. There are FEMA requirements. They have to have 5 square feet of space, but it's more than just that. Think about all the people that would try to leave their homes,
right?
Get in their vehicles at the last minute, try to get there, try to find a parking spot, try to get inside. Now, once you're inside, we have a whole nother dynamic.
Right.
And you bring your pet.
And, well, you have pets. So people want to bring pets, right? Their fur babies or their snakes or their ferrets or their guinea pigs or whatever it may be, right? People want to bring those.
All the things.
So we would have to have pet acceptable shelters. We would have to have non-pet shelters. We'd have to have, all of them would have to be ADA acceptable.
Right.
But then it goes even more than that. Who manages that? Who cleans that? Who is security while they're there? Because sometimes we have people that are separated that go to a shelter, and there could be a possible domestic. You could have somebody that's going through a bad situation, and they get there, and maybe it's a disagreement over child custody.
Well, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. No one wants that job of turning someone away.
Absolutely.
So you get at capacity at this shelter, and then you're trying to send overflow. Right. You get yourself into so many different issues. And if you're waiting until that minute to take cover, you're in a bad position. As you mentioned, Rob, just the parking alone. I have been in a tornado and a situation where just in the parking lot, debris is flying and hitting. Yeah. So it is a bad place to be.
It is.
So maybe we should talk about where people should take shelter.
Yeah,
where do you take shelter in your home?
Yeah. Exactly.
Where do you go? What are the safe places to go to?
So obviously, if you listen to the media, they'll tell you below ground, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, they say safest, right?
Obviously, right, below ground. So storm shelter, safe room, even retrofitted, whether it was built in the house to begin with, or if it was retrofitted. Right. Those are the best. Right. But let's think about this logistically, right? People have been surviving tornadoes in houses, inside, in the bathroom, in the lowest level, most interior of their homes for the most amount of years, right?
That's right.
People in Moore, Oklahoma, survived EF5 tornadoes in their bathroom, covered up, wearing bicycle helmets, with pillows and mattresses and everything else on themselves. Did. Yeah. So
I was there.
Lowest level, most interior. Now, one of the things that I've seen recently that I really, really like, because one of the things that we have in this community that is not well addressed is we have a lot of apartment complexes.
That's right.
Yes.
And those apartment complexes have a lot of people, and
a lot of our students. I'm so glad you're addressing that.
So what happens is it's a tiered approach, right? So we say, if you live in an apartment complex and you know the weather's going to get bad, and you can safely go to somebody else's house, a friend, a relative, somebody that has a more sturdy structure, we recommend that. So if you don't have that, the next best step is if you live on an elevated floor, make neighbors or make friends with the neighbors below on the lowest level, right? Okay, so a lot of people have issue with that, right? They have anxieties about going to somebody that they don't really know and saying, hey, if the weather's bad, can I come in?
Right.
So I get that. So what we were told was basically the same as a house. Most interior, put the most walls between you and the exterior, and take shelter in your home. So in your apartment. So if it's a bathroom, if it's a closet, if it's a bedroom closet or something like that, to go there. Yeah. So those are the options that we recommend in that order. Leave, go to just like a mobile home. Leave, but leave in plenty enough time to get somewhere safe. If you can make neighbors or make friends with the neighbors below, do it. If not, most interior. So put as many walls between you and the outside, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I would say also, I mean, it's kind of the neighborly thing. If you have a storm shelter, to let people know that you have one, if you have space for other people. We have a small basement in our house. And we have some college students who rent the house across the street from us. When they moved in, I walked over there and I said, "Do you have a storm shelter?" I mean, because I'm that lady in the neighborhood, right?
Well, and do you know, so many of our students come from back east or from overseas, and I'll say, "Do you know what to do during tornado weather?"
Exactly.
And I'm right there with you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Chris and I have one of those built in the garage,
Mm-hmm.
and it seats 8 people. So
There you
we
go.
would be gathering up our neighbors if they needed to come.
Exactly. I told them we have a basement, we have a storm shelter. If I'm at work and the tornado sirens are going off, call me. I will text you the door code.
Yeah.
And you can get in there.
Yeah.
So we, believe it or not, we have close to 800 registered storm shelters in our system. And almost every one of those that is registered says, "Oh, my neighbor comes over." In the notes section, they'll say, "Oh, my neighbor comes over." So, so we know that they either have family, friends, or neighbors that are coming
That's a
over.
great point,
and
too.
staying in their shelter.
Is make sure that your storm shelter is registered.
Yep.
Because that
exactly.
is how we are able to know where to go and make sure that everyone is okay.
That's
And
right.
that was another thing we learned from Moore with that EFI that you mentioned was the registered shelters.
Which one? One,
No.
2, or 3?
The most latest and greatest.
Oh,
Or-
my goodness.
Or call a relative and say,
That's
the
right.
weather's bad, I'm going to my storm
So that's-
shelter.
So you bring up an awesome point,
Yes.
right? So in your planning for this, if you can take and share your plan with
Mhm.
somebody else in the same community,
Good point.
that is highly encouraged. If you can't, if you don't have somebody here, share it with somebody in another community.
Mhm.
Just so long as somebody has your information and knows where you're at, will help when first responders come. So if here's an example, I'm going to my shelter, so I call my sister. There's
Mhm.
another community say, "Hey, I'm going to my storm shelter. There's a tornado coming."
Right.
If you don't hear from me in an hour, call.
Mm-hmm.
And then they call, and then what happens is she can call the local authorities. We have it registered. We know where the shelter's at in the house. We know where it's supposed to be. So let's say you had damage, or let's say you got in there and the door got jammed. And you can't
Or
get
the
out.
car landed on you.
Or the
I mean,
car-
that's
or the
my
car-
worry with that
Yeah,
one.
Well, but
so-
it's true.
Yeah.
These
So
things happen.
so that way you call the authorities. We go by and we can check and we can make sure, and we know where that's at because it's already registered.
Well, and all of this speaks to the importance of being prepared ahead of time. So we know that this is not fun to talk about or to endure, but we live in Oklahoma. We know the potential for bad weather, and it is all being prepared, and it is
Right.
having that plan, because whether it is actually a tornado or not, or just extremely high winds or whatever the severe weather may be, you're not always guaranteed cell phone reception after the storm has hit.
Exactly.
And so therefore that adds to the panic and the worry versus be prepared ahead of time. Make sure you share your plan. You have that open conversation with another trusted individual. And then we can do what we need to after the storm hits to make sure everyone's safe and clean up.
Rob, can we go out to the stillwater.org website? Can you register your shelter online?
Absolutely. Yeah. Go to
And there's no
stillwater.org
fee for it,
/
right?
There's no fee.
Free.
Stillwater.org / EM is in emergency management. And one of the options is to register your storm shelter. You can go on. It's very simple. You type in your address. The map should take you to the location. And you can be as specific with the map as taking the mouse, placing the cursor over the exact portion of your house where your shelter's
You
at.
done that?
That's
click it.
awesome. Yes.
Good.
Click it.
Yes.
Put in some information, some phone numbers and location in the house. If you've got some notes, you can do that as well.
Perfect.
So if I live not in the corporate city limits, do I register my storm shelter with the sheriff's department, or do I still register it through stillwater.org?
Good
So
question.
you can register it with stillwater.org because we share the information, but you can also register it with Payne County Emergency Management.
Payne County Emergency
Yeah.
Management.
Okay, so let's switch lanes real quick because we are running out of time and there's so much to talk about.
know.
We just got
Yeah.
started. What are you talking about?
I
We're
know,
out of
I
time.
know. Okay, so possible severe storms.
Yes.
Follow emergency management on Facebook, please. The
Yes.
latest and greatest updates, we cover those immediately as they're going. Rob and his team do such a great job. Let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, some of the things we've been dealing with right now with the high winds and the fire.
Mhm.
What are some things that we can do if we are caught in a situation like that and to be prepared?
Yeah. So fire's one of those unique monsters, right? It happens every spring. It happens every fall. It happens when we have a lot of dormant grasses around, and the atmosphere starts to warm up, and people are more outdoors, burning brush piles, burning trash, and so forth. So we tend to we watch the weather every single day, and we post to our social media site, like you referenced, and we let you know if it's a fire danger day, it's a red flag warning day. If there's a burn ban in place, we let you know that, so you can decide, should I burn today or should I not? So obviously there are good days to burn and bad days to not. But if you get caught in a situation where there is a fire, obviously if you can get away from it, that's the best. Second thing is, if you can get inside a structure to get away from the heat and the flames and call 911, we want you to do that as well. That way we can get first responders on scene and get you help and get you evacuated. Fire is so difficult because when we have those big high fire danger days, it's usually associated with low relative humidity, and it's associated with the high winds.
Right.
And so just being aware, having your head on a swivel, watching outside. Do you smell smoke? If you smell smoke, can you see smoke? If you can see it and you can smell it, did you call 911 and let people know there's a fire, right? Yeah. So a little bit of elementary school coming out there. If you can see it, you can smell it. Yeah. Right. So we encourage people to call and call often, but also at the same time, if you're going to call, stay where you can give updated information. Don't just call and say, hey, I see smoke, I see this, I see that, and then hang up with the dispatcher, right?
That doesn't
help us, lead us in. Let us know where you're at. Let us know the direction you're looking. But fire is unique. So fire usually is the opposite of severe weather. We tell you shelter in place in severe weather, but in fire, we want you to evacuate the area. In both cases, and we didn't talk about this very much, but in both cases require you to have a go bag.
Okay.
In your go bag, you're going to need change of clothes, you're going to need medication, you're going to need copies of paperwork. People that lost their houses last week in the fire, they don't have the paperwork if they didn't take it with them. So how do they access funds at the bank? How do they prove that they had insurance? How do they prove that this is their vehicle, that they lived here? So all those things are necessary. In a storm shelter situation, we tell you that you put a change of clothes in your storm shelter, because if you are impacted by a tornado, usually when you go in, it's warm, it's hot, it's humid, and it's getting ready to rain and stuff. When you come out, it's usually cold. There's usually debris everywhere. If you go inside wearing cut-off jeans and flip-flops and a wife beater shirt,
this is so true.
Yeah, wearing a wife beater, and when you come out, you wish you had boots, long pants, a long sleeve shirt, a hat, and something else, and maybe even some gloves, because the situation has changed drastically. So when you think preparedness, we want you to think in totality. All the threats, all the disasters that can occur around you, we want you to think about those things so that you can be prepared, whether you have to grab and go or whether you have to grab and stay. That's what we want you to think about.
So can you scan and upload documents to the cloud, and then
absolutely
and then you have it in your hand,
as long as you have access to your passwords that get you into the cloud later.
That's why you have a password that's unique to yourself,
and not just password. It can't just be password.
Yeah,
no, learn that.
Not that.
So another thing that we recommend is that you keep some type of a power supply to charge your phone. So when you go to your safe place, you plug it in immediately, so you start charging. So when you come out, if there is no power, you have the ability to make phone calls. You have the ability to let people know that you're okay. You have the ability to start the process of the recovery.
And that's providing that the towers didn't get blown down, right?
That's true. So
maybe
you might not have service.
Can you text even if?
Just depends on if you have service.
Not necessarily. That's if those towers are down, But you will get there. You will get there. There is cleanup and remember, healing after the storm, I promise. But we have to be prepared, and that will. If the more we are prepared before a storm, the easier, I promise, it most likely is.
And the biggest thing with community preparedness is it starts with you,
yes,
your neighbor, your neighborhood, your area of the town, in town itself.
And I think that's what these two ladies are both doing, is
Right.
being that in their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
working with their.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's why
Well,
we're neighbor.
That's right. Well, Rob, thank you for joining us
Very
today.
welcome.
As always,
Yeah.
he is a wealth of information.
Yes.
His team, they are truly phenomenal.
And his team is predominantly volunteers, guys.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. But please follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Mhm.
But the Facebook definitely
Right.
gets that updates, especially when there's a storm going and we're down there watching.
And
all
working
that.
with you, it's live updates.
It
So
is.
if you check to get notifications, every time she posts, you get the new notification.
And Rob and I, we will make that initial post on Facebook, and then everything concerning that storm will be updated
In that
on that
thread.
same feed, that same
Yeah.
thread. So.
Well, and
Yes, ma'am.
Rob, don't you have a relationship with Team Radio where they also broadcast from the EOC?
We do, yes. So when we have moderate to high end events, our partners from Team Radio will come over into our emergency operations center,
Mhm.
and then as information comes out from our office, the information that Don puts out, they turn around and they just read right back over Team Radio. So if we do have an event that occurs, Team Radio will be there with us, broadcasting on their channels, their 5 channels, and they will be telling you what we need you to do as a result of that event, and where you can go for services and help, and where first responders are going, and so forth.
And
So-
they are great. They sit there and work right there with us. But many thanks to Rob Hill again for
Absolutely.
everything that he does with his team and volunteers, and for joining us today. So, and thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And Eric behind the camera.
Thank
and
you,
thank
Eric.
you all for joining us. Together, we are investing in municipal excellence. Take care.
Bye.